All right, peace. Welcome back to the channel. In this one, I want to go over Black Wall Street. We always hear about the success of Black Wall Street, but we never hear about the origin of Black Wall Street. So Black Wall Street has 600 businesses, 21 churches, 21 restaurants, 30 grocery stores, 2 movie theaters, 6 private airplanes, a hospital, a bank, and its own school system. I know we done all seen this meme before, but many of the Black Americans who traveled to Oklahoma had ancestors who could be traced back to Oklahoma. Many of the settlers were relatives of Native Americans who had traveled on foot with the 5 civilized tribes along the Trail of Tears. Others were descendants of people who had fled to Native American territory. Many Black residents were also from the various Muskogee-speaking people, such as the Creek, Seminole, the Yuchi, while some had been adopted by the tribes after the Emancipation Proclamation. They were thus able to live freely in Oklahoma territory. So we had many of the residents who were from the various Muskogee-speaking people. Others had been adopted by the tribe after the Emancipation Proclamation. So we got two different things going on. So Tosa was settled between 1828 and 1836 by the local Poker Band of the Creek Native American tribe. They named their new settlement Tulsa, meaning old town in the Creek language, which later became Tosa. The historic Creek people in the area are believed to have descended from the Mississippian culture, which flourished throughout the Mississippi and Ohio River Valley in the southeast from about 1,000 to 14,000 BC. They were mound builders who created massive earthwork mounds as structures for political and religious purposes. They relied greatly on fishing and riverway trading at their major sites, Moundville and Tuscaloosa. Tallahassee was a town on the coastal province of the Mississippian culture. It was visited in 1540 by Hernando de Soto on his in his expedition through the southeast. Later was occupied by the historic Creek people. That Tallahassee area was the location of the Creek capital, the Chi, as well as the location of 7 sacred plates. So what we want to show here is that Tulsa is the same word as Tallahassee that you find in Georgia, that you also find you find in Alabama, Georgia, you find it in Florida, and you find it as Tosa in Oklahoma. The Mississippian culture arose as the cultivation of maize from Mesoamerica led to population growth. Increased population density gave rise to the urban centers and regional chiefdoms. Societies developed with hereditary religious and political elites and flourished in what is now the Midwestern, Eastern, and Southeastern United States from 800 to 1500 AD. So we find that the Mesoamericans came into this area where we find the Mississippi culture, who looks very similar to the Yucatan culture. So these are people who gave rise. So tension first broke out as the Civil War amongst the Creeks, but the U.S. forces also got involved. And through all of this intervention, through the Creek Civil War, they had to cede land in the Treaty of Fort Jackson, and many of those people got pushed into Florida. And you couldn't really tell the difference between the Creek and the Yamasee and the Seminoles because they were black tribes. After their defeat, many Creek migrated to Indian territory, while some went into hiding with other resistant Indians in the Southeast, including the Cherokee and the Seminole tribes in Florida. The Creek who relocated from the Takabachi area named the new settlement Tallahassee in Indian Territory. It was later known as Tosa, Oklahoma. So we're getting into this, migrating into Oklahoma. So this is from early when Hernando de Soto was messing with Tuscaloosa, who name meant Black Warrior. He says the governor entered the village of Tuscaloosa, which is called Allahatchee, a recent village, and the chief was on a kind of balcony on a mound on a side of the square. His head was covered in some kind of coif, like a asmazel, so the headdress was like a Moor's, which gave him an aspect of authority. So when Hernando de Soto came, he saw this chief Tuscaloosa, who named him Black Chief, with an azamel like a Moor. These are the people of the Creek tribe that gave rise to these people going into Oklahoma. And this is from the Treaty of 1866 with the Creek. Wells, the parties, basically slavery can exist in places where the party have been duly convicted in accordance with the applicable law to all the members of said tribe. And in so as much that there are among the Creek many persons of African descent who have no interest in the soil, and it is stipulated that hereafter these persons lawfully residing in Creek country under the laws and usage, or who had thus been residing in said country and may return within 1 year from the ratification of this treaty, and their descendants and such others of the same race may be permitted by the law of the said nation to settle within the limits of the jurisdiction of the Creek Nation as citizens, shall have and enjoy all rights and privileges of native citizens, including equal interest in the soil, national funds. So every tribe after the Civil War that allied with the Confederacy, which all the 5 civilized tribes did, which screwed the black people because the blacks in the tribes didn't ally with the Confederacy. That was just the way for them to re-enslave, to enslave those black natives and re-enslave the others. But these people had equal rights in the soil and of the tribe. So when these people went to Indian territory, they had equal rights. So this gave rise, these creeks, this gave rise to what we find in Oklahoma with Black Wall Street. So never forget the Treaty of 1866, which did issue out land and rights to black people who was a part of these 5 civilized tribes, and the black people who was just in that territory, because they had free people of color and freedmen. It was 2 different people that were freed. But it's a Free Black Society presentation. Peace.